welcome to the Washington Dulles Airport, where the local time is 6:06 a.m.
Yes, I was finally in the United States of America, the land of the free and ironically also the land with most prisoners per capita. And after going through immigration, I was ready to head out into rainy Washington D.C.
Welcome to rainy United States. Amazing. I have entered the country at least like 3 hours of sleep. It's really fun.
I took the overpriced but only bus going between the airport and the city, navigated the subway, dropped off my bags, and then I headed to another subway. And I must admit, I was not too impressed with my first impressions of America.
So what is my first impression of DC? Not too good, probably because I'm tired and it's raining, but we'll see how it develops. Oh yeah, I almost got poisoned by a drink at Subway, because, I don't know, tasted like chlorine, smelled like chlorine.
It was chlorine. Kinda. I later realized that fountain sodas in America are supposed to taste like that.
Yeah, great start. At least the meatball sub was good.
Anyway, trying to escape the rain, I headed into the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, which was free and honestly a great museum.
It's a sign of the times.
I managed to kill a few hours there, but eventually I got bored and headed out to explore the mall. Not the mall as in a shopping center, but as the area where most DC monuments are located. And I gotta admit, I was sleep deprived, it was cold and raining, so I was not in my best mood.
Really warm welcome to the United States of America. Nah, shit happens. I feel better after the museum actually, it was a pretty good museum. We'll get a famous view, the Washington Monument. Behind us, Capitolium. We can barely see it. Like I had my expectations set relatively high, so now they're, really low. So tomorrow I will probably be impressed instead. Heart of democracy in a free world, whatever. So here we got another iconic DC view that is not too impressive right now, but what can we do? Let's go.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything else to do, so I kept exploring. Here is the massive World War II memorial, for example.
I guess these are all the states people died from. I can't afford there would be more water in this little pond.
Moving on to the iconic Lincoln Memorial, most famous for its many steps. But if you make it all the way up there, there is also quite a known statue of some guy. And from here you unironically have the best view over the mall. Moving on to more war memorials. Here's the Korean one, which actually looked pretty cool in this weather. And here's the Vietnam one, where kids apparently still leave patriotic paintings for the dead.
It's barely visible, but yeah, that's the White House. After a few hours now, DC is actually starting to grow on me. It's pretty cool too. Obviously it's designed to be like this. It's designed to have this like really wide open spaces, these fancy buildings. Honestly, they did a good job. I think they have a water shortage here in America, because every single pond is emptied or almost empty. And I get it. It's raining right now. There's water pools on the ground. Quite a building. Quite a view. So here is the White House.
The next morning I did kinda the same thing again, but with good weather and some people I met in my hostel. I also discovered this side of the White House. Interesting stuff going on here.
I'd just like to encourage you to come on up at any time. I'd be more than happy to pray with you.
Anyway, enjoy this tour of the mall, good weather and nice photos.
More people, but beautiful weather. Only thing we have here is fear. It's deep.
I don't know if it was obvious, but I enjoyed that day a lot more than my first. The next day I had managed to get tickets for the Congress Library, which I had heard would be pretty cool, so I headed there.
I guess this is the front side of the Capitolium. This is the Supreme Court. That should be the library.
And it was a fancy building indeed, very decorated and cool. You're not allowed to read any books unless you're a historian or something though, which is a bit weird for a library. Then again, the books are quite old, and who cares about old books? And after I was done soaking in the beautiful decorations, I headed to the Capitol to see it from this side.
Just as it's starting to rain. Perfect timing. United States Capitol. From the front, apparently. You can enter it on the right side. Last time, look at it on the right side. And it's cold.
It is an impressive building, I really gotta admit. I then headed to the National Archives and had a look at the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and all those famous old papers. I now felt pretty done with DC, so it was time to move on.
What a bus station.
The bus station was not too impressive, but the bus was clean and comfortable, and I even fell asleep for a few hours. But I woke up in time to see the skyscrapers of Philadelphia in the distance. Are you ready? Because I'm gonna go Philly all over everybody's ass! No, not really. It was cold and I was tired. And to get into town I took the scariest subway I have ever been on. Like, no joke, I was pretty sure I was gonna get robbed. Great first impression. I then had my first Philly cheesesteak ever, which immediately raised my opinion about this town. Strengthened by a hearty amount of meat and cheese and bread, I was now ready to explore Philly. And there is really only one major thing to do here, and that is to visit the Liberty Bell. It is known because it has a crack, and according to American mythology, it cracked when it was ringing for the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July 1776, which is not true, but people wanted to believe it, so it became a symbol of liberty. Whatever, I'm happy to have seen it, and the Independence Hall next to it is also a pretty building.
New morning in Philadelphia, and the weather does seem a lot better today. I don't really know what to do today. There were no more tickets for the Independence Hall to visit inside, and the Swedish American Heritage thingy was closed. So, I don't know. Now I'm gonna have some donuts for breakfast at least. And we'll see. I don't know if there's any better way to spend a nice spring day like this. Look at all the flowers.
I eventually figured it out though, and I visited the Museum of the American Revolution, since my America adventure had turned into some type of American history tour. It was a great museum though, one of the best I have ever visited. Not some Americans good British bad propaganda-like museum like you might expect, but really good information about the course of events and views from different sides. Actually a highlight during my visit in the US. But I was already done with Philadelphia. I had not been able to shake the bad feeling I got when I arrived. A lot of shady people, a lot of open drug abuse, and a lot of what I assume are mentally ill people fighting invisible demons. The contrast between the fancy historical sites, touristing families, and that just hits you in the face. I did not feel comfortable here, nor safe. So I left.
Or we'll be making an onward connection on another bus.
Next stop, Boston.
So Boston is a lot nicer than Philadelphia. This actually looks kind of cozy, and I have a good impression of the city so far. Not too many shady, weird people screaming and fighting with demons. Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun.
I walked around in the old town for some time. For the first time in America so far, I actually enjoyed the atmosphere.
Boston is so far the first town of, well, just one 3 towns in America that I actually kind of get a feeling for. I kind of like the city, at least the old part here.
I walked down to the water and sat down to enjoy the sun and the fresh sea air on this warm spring day. And on my way home I stopped by the oldest still existing restaurant in the US to enjoy their famous clam chowder. Tasty for sure, there's no way you're getting full here unless you're rich.
proper American breakfast. Gonna have in the Boston Commons Park. Just gonna find a good spot. And once we've done that, we're gonna start the Freedom Trail. Man, I like this city. It's a nice park. So this is like the oldest park in America. So it's pretty cool.
All filled up on donuts and coffee, it was time to walk the Freedom Trail. A trail around the city taking you to most of the historical sites in Boston.
Everything can be business.
Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat and called it macaroni.
Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy.
Oh right, I actually found some cool stock footage of the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Gooding, and there we saw the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding.
Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy.
And there was Captain Washington and gentle folks about him. They say he's grown so tarnal proud he will not ride without them.
Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy.
Okay, that's enough Yankee Doodle for a lifetime.
So I guess that was the Freedom Trail. It's a nice walk through historical Boston. I did enjoy it. Now I'm gonna take the ferry back into town. I guess I won't make that one, but I guess I will make it.
And yeah, it was a nice view over the Boston skyline. I then headed back to the Boston Commons for some dinner and to enjoy the nice spring evening. And I'm glad I did, because the next day the weather was shit again.
Another morning in Boston. Well, it's almost lunchtime. The weather was shitty, so I delayed. Today we're heading to Harvard because I want to be able to say for more that I went to Harvard. That is how extremely funny I am. So this is the MIT campus or the MIT area, whatever. Boston skyline is really beautiful. Today it is cloudy weather. Oh, but it looks pretty cool. This is a good spot to actually see it properly. So this is MIT. Cool. What did you do in the US? Yeah, I went to MIT. On my way to Harvard, making my way to Harvard. So finally I can say I went to Harvard. Great. Another thing to tick off my box. Okay, so I don't know what I'm gonna do with the rest of the day now. I don't think I should do much with this day, but at least I can say I went there now. I went to MIT, I went to Harvard, so don't question my education level.
That day I walked for 4 hours in total to be able to make a shitty joke. On the way back it started raining. I have no regrets.
Another sunny day in Boston. But today we're heading to New York. Well, the bus station is supposed to be here, so let's find out. Seems like it.
Wheels on the bus go round and round.
Finally in New York. That was a long bus ride. We got stuck in traffic, so we arrived like 1.5 hours later than we should have.
I'm still waiting for that voucher Flixbus.
But it's a beautiful day. I got plenty of time. I just gonna head to the hostel and check in, and then we have some time at least to explore a bit. Not too much though, before we have to go to Broadway.
After checking in, I got myself some 99 cents a slice pizza and decided to head to Central Park to enjoy my dinner.
Welcome to Central Park. I guess this is the perfect spot to have my pizza dinner. I'm living on pizza. It's gotta find a good spot.
I found a good spot and sat down. Pizza was okay, but for the price, absolutely worth it. After dinner, I had a little walk through the park, which by the way looks a lot better on camera. Like, it's not a bad park, but it's definitely overrated. I then checked out Times Square, which is also a lot more impressive on camera. In real life, it's just a crowded space with a lot of advertisements, people trying to make money of you.
It's crazy crowded for just a big fucking advertisement.
Oh well, you live and you learn. I then headed to Broadway to see the Book of Mormon. Written by the creators of South Park, it's hands down the funniest musical I've ever seen, and Broadway productions are definitely world class. They're not lying.
It's my breakfast for today. Proper New York City bagel with lox spread, basically salmon and cream cheese. Really nice, really good, perfect breakfast. Just now I'm heading to the Statue of Liberty. There she is, Statue of Liberty. So I'm planning on having breakfast with you all. That's the best thing to do this morning, first morning in New York City. And later we're gonna visit her.
So I enjoyed my New York lox bagel with a view over the most famous New York monument. I figured to enjoy New York, you gotta become New York. And after my breakfast, it was time to get on the ship that was gonna take me to the famous Green Lady. Included in the fare is also a great view over the New York skyline. This is the exact same shot as every movie and TV show taking place in New York uses and will ever use. Anyway, after a short ride over the Upper Bay, we were approaching the French Copper Lady and her Liberty Island, and it was time to get off.
So I'm heading up to pedestal and Statue of Liberty because I booked way in advance. Sometimes I'm smart. Let's see how many stairs. Set of 176. See you at the top.
I finally got to the top. Man!
The view from up here is pretty cool. I don't really see the Liberty, Statue of Liberty though. It's kind of straight above me. But I can look at her from down there later when I go down again.
Yeah, from up here I kinda had a private viewing point. Tickets for the pedestal are very limited, and honestly, I had booked mine more than 1 month in advance, and already then, it was the last one available.
Oh, the Statue of Liberty. It is, as everyone says. Or in reality, like you imagine it to be much bigger, but it's not. But it's still pretty cool here. And Manhattan skyline over there. It's definitely worth the money. It wasn't too expensive at all.
Yeah, absolutely worth it. It was honestly pretty cool to stand on Liberty Island with Miss Liberty herself, while having a perfect view of Manhattan in the background. But I couldn't stay all day, so I took the boat to Ellis Island, the island where about 12 million immigrants arrived between 1892 and 1954. Quite interesting museum, but apparently not interesting enough since I barely have any content from inside. I once again got on the boat and had a last nice view of the New York skyline for today. Before I went home, I decided to walk by and have a look on Wall Street.
Here we'll get the place where the United States is the center of political power. Honestly underwhelming. But yeah, now I've seen the place where the United States is ruled.
And with that, I decided to call it a day.
Time to go home. So today I am exploring Brooklyn apparently, because they are supposed to have a really nice walk or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be worth it, but it's kind of cold today, especially it's really windy. The wind is really cold, but in the sun here it's not very windy either. Besides, Jesus Christ, I'm just trembling.
And yeah, there was a nice walk in Brooklyn, but it was quite short. I had a nice view of the skyline again. Now I didn't know what to do, so I decided to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge.
Found it.
The view from the bridge was pretty cool, but it was even colder and windier up there.
It's really windy.
Back on the other side again, I was getting hungry, so I decided to get the famous New York pizza I had heard so much about. And well, the pizza was okay, but quite expensive and nothing special. Sorry New Yorkers, but New York pizza is really nothing special. A bit disappointed, I continued my walk.
Okay, so let's see if we find Fred's house. I think I found it, considering the crowd of people outside.
And well, there it was.
Impressive. It's a house. Honestly, really underwhelming. It's just a fucking building. Kinda looks the same as all other buildings.
Then again, I've never been a big Friends fan, so what did I expect? The next day I once again headed out exploring. I walked by Rockefeller Center, but that was not my destination. I checked out the Grand Central Station. That was not my destination either. I went to the United Nations headquarters, but that was not... Wait, that actually was my destination.
Actually, I'm gonna visit inside. So yeah, that's gonna be cool. Hopefully.
Yeah, I was excited. I didn't know until a few days before, but you can simply buy an official tour of the place online. However, it was strictly forbidden to film inside, but we were allowed to take photos. I was really lucky that I also was able to visit the security council, because this was in April 2022, and a certain Russian man with Napoleon complex had decided to do what people with Napoleon complex tend to do, and that meant that the room was currently almost constantly in use, according to our guide.
So I just came out of the United Nations building. I was not allowed to film in there, it was strictly forbidden. But I did visit General Assembly and Security Council, which was pretty cool. Like, they're just rooms, but it's really cool that so many historical things happen there, even though the UN is not very good at resolving conflicts between the great powers and its permanent members. That's a completely different question. It was cool. I liked it. It was definitely worth taking a tour. I didn't think I would be able to visit all those places. Now, I don't know what I'm gonna do with the rest of the day.
I actually don't remember what I did the rest of the day, but in the evening I headed to Brooklyn Brewery for a tour and tasting in their experimental brewery. Great fun and great beer. And on my way back home, I took a small detour to check out Times Square in the dark.
Times Square during night. That's very in the daytime, but still just a big fucking advertisement spot. But yeah, it's cool to be here.
It was indeed more impressive in the dark, but I still found it a bit weird to voluntarily go watch advertisements. Maybe I'm weird, I don't know. And since I was in New York, spending money like there was no tomorrow, I decided to pay $50 to take an elevator. The price is justified because the building has been featured in many movies. And to be fair, you do have a pretty cool view over Manhattan from here. Unfortunately, it was extremely windy this day. The winds, however, made it really hard to enjoy. Way too cold. Yeah, the view was amazing, but I had to get out of the wind. So I headed to Ground Zero and the 9/11 Memorial instead.
I have no idea how to get out of here. So I couldn't get into the museum because it's closed today, and I couldn't book it yesterday because they wouldn't accept my card. I don't know, I think the problem is that I'm not American. It's the same thing with Empire State Building today. But it works for PayPal, but not with my Mormon cards. But at least I should visit them more, even though it's cold and windy.
Yeah, so the memorial is basically these two pools marking the location of the towers and the names of those who died. And standing there between the skyscrapers made it a bit more real how big it actually was. And so my last morning came. I started the day with some breakfast in Central Park, followed by a walk in the nice spring sun. My flight was not leaving until the evening, so to kill a few more hours, I visited the Intrepid, an old aircraft carrier turned museum. Pretty cool with the old aircraft, and also cool to just walk around this massive old warship. My highlight was the Space Shuttle Pavilion. You see, when I was a kid, my biggest dream was to become an astronaut.
12-year-old me is screaming right now. It was my dream. It just took 30 years.
I killed quite a few hours, and I could have killed a few more. But my time in America was up. So I took the air train to the airport, checked in, went through security, and had a final meal. Now, after 2 weeks in America, I was honestly excited to leave. I'm gonna be completely honest here. I did not enjoy my time at all. I'm not trying to offend anyone here, so hold your patriotism and hear me out. Sure, I did have some cool experiences, but I simply could not understand the hype. I had a bad feeling from the moment I arrived until the moment I left, and I never felt the vibe. Everything felt kinda fake. While editing this video, I've had some time to reflect on why. First of all, I had quite high expectations. I'd spent almost 3 months in Mexico and Guatemala prior to coming, and I was excited to get back to the Western world again. And since I was on this side of the Atlantic, I figured I'd visit the US. And after watching thousands of hours of American movies and TV shows, you kinda start believing the myth. Like, I did not actually expect New York to be the greatest city of the world, but I figured it would at least have some type of magic. But no, I honestly can't even place it top 30. Secondly, I don't like big cities. I visited 4 big cities on the American East Coast. I thought that there would be enough cool things to see and do in them for me to enjoy it anyway, but no. After DC, I found myself struggling to get the days to pass. They were often dirty and run down, and when it wasn't, it was meticulously clean, and the contrast between the shining skyscrapers and the homeless sleeping on the street just got so weird. Third, I was alone. Being alone in big cities is a bit heavy, and I found that hostels were not very social here. Most of my interactions with people were when I was buying something, and I can't say which I dislike more, just plain unfriendliness or that fake American niceness. I found there was rarely anything in between. However, I genuinely did have a few great nights chatting with strangers in bars. And it's true, Americans are friendly and easy to speak with. But I could not be out every night because drinks are expensive and I didn't want to spend every day hungover. Quite frankly, I think I did something wrong. The US is the 3rd most visited country in the world, and I barely have anything nice to say about my time there. So I'd love to be proven wrong actually, because I refuse to believe that a country that big doesn't have anything to offer me. And if I ever go back, I will avoid the big cities. End of rant, now it was time to go back to Europe.
Almost first aboard.
Very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Captain Sue speaking. Welcome aboard our flight SQ25 bound for Frankfurt onwards to Singapore.
I was flying with Singapore Airlines, which is an amazing experience even in economy class. Comfortable, spacious seats, real cutlery, complimentary wine with the food, and afterwards even some cognac to put you to sleep. And after an actually pretty good night of sleep on board, we landed in Frankfurt, Germany. The reason why I was going back now was actually to make sure I was there in time for Denise's birthday. After a short train ride from Frankfurt to Bonn, I got off. And there she was, camera gone and forgotten. I hope you enjoyed this video and that my misery brought you some joy. Feel free to tell me why I'm wrong about the US. I'd actually love to be proven wrong. Until next time.
Say whatever you want about that man, but the hotel was pretty fancy.